Hey there, Sarah James here with the Vintage Guitar Legacies. Recently at NAMM 2026, we spent time at the Suhr booth. Suhr is always a great stop because their entire approach is about refining classic designs and removing the little quirky issues that can get in the way of playability. We talk guitars, pedals, electronics, and what they've been working on over the past year. Let's jump in. Okay, so first we spent some time on the pedal and electronic side because Suhr has been putting out some really impressive modern pedal board friendly designs.
This is kind of the end of the year's work that we've done R&Ding all of these guitars and building all of these different versions of limited editions, and now's the time we get to share it. So it's kind of the easy part of it, the fun part of it.
That's awesome. It's got to be really exciting to be here.
It's amazing. It's the best. NAMM show's awesome. I want to also bring in Kevin Suhr.
Kevin, I'm Sarah James from Vintage Guitar Legacies. NAMM has kind of awakened the idea that how are your guitars informed by vintage instruments like, you know, the Strats, the Tellys, and so forth. Where has Suhr taken those guitars into the future, and what are your plans?
Well, I mean, my dad's been part of the Fender shop in the past, and he's done a lot of work since the 80s, so he's always been dealing with these classic designs, and he's just done a lot of work to improve them. And in his eyes, he always says he always just wants to make a better mousetrap. So he's trying to take everything that he saw that was a flaw, he would try and improve it, and that's kind of where we ended up going, is we're just trying to make some an instrument that won't hold you back, so that at least you have no excuses to go, oh, you know, it's going out of tune, or I'm slipping off the edge of the fretboard. Now we try and get rid of all those excuses.
Yeah, those nasty Strats, right? Yeah.
We try and get rid of all those excuses and just go, okay, now you just have to rely on playing, and now it's all up to you. So that's what we do.
Well, that's awesome. You have a wonderful lineup here. Some body shapes that are very familiar to us, and so it looks like there's a heritage reflected in a lot of these instruments.
Yeah, I mean, we know people like to play classic designs. You know, we also try and do some different things every now and then, but, you know, my dad loves to bring those classic designs and just try and make improvements on them. And
what are some of the new innovations that you've developed to take the Suhr guitar into the next level, if you will?
You know, those kind of questions would be better asked for my dad, because he's the one who's really, you know, doing those changes. But, you know, for me, I'm more working on the electronic side of those innovations.
The pickup side. Okay. Talk to me about that.
The guitar pedals and stuff. Yeah. You know, with the guitar pedals.
So you're doing pedals too?
Yeah. We have our whole line of pedals over here.
We'll get some
Sure.
shots in there.
Yeah, you know, over here, we do in the same way that we do, you asked about like heritage and legacy with guitars, we kind of do that with our guitar pedals. So we take analog designs, but we kind of bring them into the modern era by giving it new digital features. So like, for example, our kind of flagship analog delay over here, called the Discovery, is a fully programmable analog delay. It has, everything is voltage controlled, so you can actually save presets, and you can see the delay time on the screen, which is something you usually never see on an analog delay. You can even switch it over to BPM and tap tempo BPM. So all these features are kind of things that you would see on digital units, but we've kind of incorporated them into the analog world so that you can control the analog designs with digital features. And most of our other pedals too, they're all analog, but they have digital switching on them, you know, things like that. So you can bring them into a modern pedal board setup. And our new fuzz this year, the Thornicus, is a dual channel fuzz with an octave circuit in there, really high gain. It's a great sounding thick fuzz with rich harmonics. And it also, on the side, has MIDI on there. So if you have a modern MIDI switching board, you can turn which channel you want on or off and switch things like that. So I'm working on the electronics mostly to bring kind of the hybrid.
So you've got kind of a complete package, you know, with the pedals and sound. So as a guitarist, I wouldn't want to be able to walk in, not worry about being in tune, out of tune, or whatever. Yeah. Plug into my pedals and go.
Yeah, we do try and offer the complete setup. So from the guitars to the pedals to the amplifiers to the pickups, you know, we really try and get our hands involved in every part of the tone. And
I'm going to repeat the question, Kevin. So, Kevin, can you tell me And from your experience, your development, how has the pedal market changed today? And what are some of the innovations that are coming into play to develop these incredible instruments?
Well, I think there's been so many routes for the pedal market. You have like the guys that just do the vintage boutique thing that are more like classic to what they were. You have companies that are pushing the boundaries with new digital technologies, signal processing, machine learning, and AI is now getting involved into a lot of these new effects. You have companies like us where we try and kind of blend a little bit of both. We have designs with analog and digital involved, trying to make some of the analog designs controllable with digital features. There's a few pedals like that too. I feel like there's always the classic effects that you always see, but I think probably where things are changing most right now are probably in this whole AI machine learning kind of space. I think in the future you'll start to see more and more advanced pedals. I think there's even pedals running like operating systems on them, like Linux and stuff, kind of almost like computers in a box. So I think we're starting to see a lot more high-tech features in pedals, and now they're not just the basic transistors and op amps you used to see in analog designs. They're just...
As an engineer, how have you seen, or how would you predict AI to begin to influence the development of the pedals?
Oh, well, we're already seeing it now. We're seeing like captures of designs, like machine learning is used to capture analog, because analog is really hard to replicate with just kind of algorithms, but machine learning and things like that are actually able to predict how an analog device would behave. So you're actually getting more realistic emulations of real analog designs. So it's kind of getting interesting, and I think as more people catch on and learn, maybe even ourselves, we'll start to see more of that tagline, AI, machine learning, things like that. And I think in the end of the day, most of them are trying to emulate what we already have with analog, but it's probably just for the convenience factor. If someone could just download a model of this analog thing or this amp, I can see it being appealing to a lot of people. So
it was really wonderful talking to Kevin Suhr, and then we were lucky enough to sit down with John Suhr himself to talk about modernization, his take on precision, and why the smallest details matter the most. I'm Sarah James at Vintage Guitar Legacies, here with John Suhr from Suhr Guitars behind me here. It's a really honor to be able to talk to you a little bit. So I asked you a question about the development of your product and how it's informed by the heritage of the past.
Well, I've been building guitars since 1974. So when you ask about Fender, it was a job. I was hired as a senior master builder, and I worked there for a while. But it's basically I want to be in control of everything we do. We start from our lumber. We are no parts company. We do all paint, everything in house. We've got a 30,000 square foot facility in Lake Elsinore. But my idea is I'm just a frustrated guitar player, and so I kind of came at this in my youth during the 80s. I didn't like any of the product that was out there, and I had to make myself something better. And then I got sidetracked into that, and that became my life. But I love doing what I do, and I'm trying to make a better machine for a guitar player so he doesn't have to worry about it. The same thing with the amplifiers is the same thing. I had a passion because I didn't like any of the tones I was hearing out of the amps that were on the market. So I've just, it's a selfish creation here. It's just, I'm just thrilled that other people enjoy what I do.
We talked a little bit about the modernization of the guitar. The electric guitar has been around for a long time, and as Suhr moves the product forward, what is your concept of the modernization of the electric guitar as you see it?
Yeah, it's probably a selfish thing, but it's like things that always bothered me about the vintage instruments that were out there. I mean, the vintage instruments we all grew up with have a lot of amazing sounds and that we've all gotten used to. It is kind of ingrained into our heads, but I always felt that they were lacking in playability. And things like intonation, things like tunability, accurate fret placements, so we cut every single fret slot with one saw blade on a CNC that makes engines for race cars. So everything is extremely accurate on what we're doing. There's also things like on a typical Fender, the bridge, in my opinion, is way too wide compared to the width of the neck. So a lot of people have the problem with falling off the high E string, falling off the edge of the neck when they do some wide bends or things like that. So that was one of the first things that bothered me, and which I corrected with the geometry of the bridge compared to the neck. Then you've also got things like the fingerboard radius. So I started out with, straight radiuses like 10 or 12 or 7 1/4 even. But then I found out that a compound radius can really work to somebody's advantage, where they can have that kind of vintage feel at the lower area, but it plays clean when you try and lower the action. It's all the things or tunability, that's another thing that's crazy. We have a new bridge that's stays tuned very well, to the point where a lot of our artists are getting rid of locking saddles and things like that, and they're going back to the new bridge. But and the last thing I think is really important to me, besides things like contours on the body, tummy contours, arm contours, things that make it easier to access the frets on a traditional shape. Then also noise. Noise is the big thing that customers have been complaining since the 80s when I worked on 48th Street. But we figured that out too, where we have basically an antenna inside the guitar that cancels out the single coil noise without changing the tone whatsoever. We used to put it on a switch just to prove to people. It's kind of like a funny thing. There was in NAMM show, in NAMM show, the electrical is very nice. It's not interfering with your guitar. So you don't really hear single coil noise at NAMM. It was kind of funny. One year we were kicking it in and out. We thought it was broken, but no, it's because NAMM is pretty clean. But if you're on stage with lights and things like that, the noise it's unbearable to use overdrive. And so, but with our stuff, you can use a Telecaster and it'll sound like AC/DC. Crank it up all you want. It's going to be very quiet.
It really was an incredible experience to sit down with John Suhr and Kevin Suhr themselves. But this wouldn't really be an informative video if we didn't get a chance to look at the new models that are coming out, what Suhr is doing to introduce a whole new line of signature guitars.
So this is our artist wall. So we have a number of artists ranging from country to kind of doing their own band to kind of shredding guitar to pop. Andy Wood is one of our longtime artists. We just did this new kind of GT series. It's essentially based off of a car colors. This is a GT candy red. This is a GT blue. It's like a Shelby blue type of thing. He loves cars. Super hot rod inspired. Cars and guitars. Ian Thornley, this is kind of like a retro inspired design. New pick guard design for us. We've never done this kind of deluxe big shape. So it's definitely a retro thing. He's going to be here very soon and playing his new buzz pedal as well. So it's very cool. Pete Thorne, he is a legend. He's played with people like Chris Cornell, Melissa Etheridge. He now does a ton of YouTube and internet work. These are two models kind of based off of his very first signature model. Both humbuckers, just two humbuckers, super simple, kind of based off of like a classic Les Paul look, the black with the scrape binding. What's this one called? This was Cactus Green Metallic, super nice. Tim Stewart, brand new artist for us. He has played with everyone from Rihanna to Miley Cyrus to Lady Gaga. He's been American Idol's guitar player for over 20 years. Incredible musician. He also has a couple bands called Damage, and he's just a legend. So these are our first guitars with him. Normally you don't see a classic JM with a classic T pickup in there, so it's kind of a unique setup, and they're both black, so can't go wrong with the black guitar. One other brand new artist for us is Benji Madden. He plays for Good Charlotte, a legendary, super beautiful, one of the most beautiful guitars on the entire booth this year. It's nice. We're only making 100 of each of these, so they're super limited. He's doing a really special certificate of authenticity with each one, and kind of like a collectible with each one. It's going to be very special. I always say that, Benji, he's responsible for so many people picking up the guitar. He's an amazing songwriter, so it's really rad to have him part of the group. The other two new signatures we have are James Norbert Ivania. He is an Australian prog mastermind, incredible musician, and same thing, very like retro inspired colors. He loves Triumph motorcycles, and that's what this brown is based off this old Triumph that he used to love as a kid. So all of these guitars are very based in, retro legacy, and that's what we think is cool to bring in guitar to the modern day.
Yeah, that's kind of my our focus is the retro, the vintage, moving into the future, and you've done that.
And that's what this is. This is a modern. We call this shape the modern. So it has 24 frets, a really accessible heel, but it has those retro-inspired points that keep it feeling really awesome.
It's probably an idea that Gibson came up with years ago with their Pelham Blue guitars. I have a Pelham Blue Firebird, and that was from the GM plants. So you've like all kind of like taken that to another level.
Absolutely, especially with Andes and these. I mean, these are straight from the Pantone color from these car companies. So it's awesome.
Very cool. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate your time. Yeah, you bet. Thank you.